we're looking at a real, genuine effort to increase affordability in the United States of America. So Donald Trump has been aggressively working to bring down inflation, but that's not enough. It's not enough because, heck, Biden drove it all the way up over 9%. I mean, we were looking at almost double digits in consumer price inflation when Biden came to office. So now, you know, even when you're back and you're like, okay, well, this is good. We're like at 2.5% or something. The problem is you were all the way up there. So he's like, how do we encourage affordability? One of the ways, of course, is the $2,000 checks that you've heard him talk about, that you've seen him tweet about, and that you have heard, as we heard earlier from Besant, the Treasury Secretary speak about. But this is just part of a very big plan. They want to do a lot. They want to bring down interest rates. They want to make it easier for people to buy homes, for people to invest, and for people to have a little extra money to invest. Watch.
The White House wants to pivot its messaging to the economy and what it can do to reassure Americans things aren't as bleak as many people believe. As Politico points out today, the president and his team want to put a difficult start to November behind them with a blizzard of policy and PR announcements designed to help Americans with the cost of living. So what are those announcements going to be? More deals with pharmaceutical companies to bring down drug prices, efforts to address those higher mortgage rates, try to change the housing market, reducing tariffs, as you guys mentioned, on a number of products, as well as a possible $2,000 rebate check for some taxpayers.
Sure. Is he going to be sending these direct payments to Americans of $2,000 or more?
We will see. We need legislation for that. And again, President Trump is all about solutions, Maria, and yes, everything is on the table.
Americans also struggling to afford health care. Congress knows it. Democrats demanding the government extend subsidies, which lowers Obamacare premiums. The White House thinks it has a better idea. It wants to use money to help boost Americans who rely on health savings accounts. And some lawmakers think there is a real chance for compromise.
This should be a bill that is not partisan, but it should be a bill to extend those premium tax credits because, as everybody has talked about, there is real urgency to get this done.
One of the big questions, Bill, has been, what about the state of the economy? Is it strong? Is it weak? We should get a better idea later this week. We're going to get the jobs numbers. But for the month of September, they were due out in early October, but because of the shutdown, that never happened. So you have to stay tuned to Thursday to find out how September's job market was.
Yeah, so we'll see how those jobs numbers look. I mean, you know, look, we're kind of glass half full over at 76 Research, which I encourage you to visit. I would just say that if the jobs numbers don't look good, and some of the early private reports suggested they may not be as promising as you want, then that would actually give the Fed more room to cut rates, which is what Donald Trump has been pushing and pushing and pushing. Now, unfortunately, the Fed's always late. That's their biggest problem. They're always so freaking late, or they're so late, and then they don't do enough, and then they do too much. Right. So you think about 2020, great example. I mean, they kind of were twiddling their thumbs, and then they finally moved, and then they couldn't stop moving. And then we were like all the way into a total recovery, and the Fed's still printing. I mean, you get academics who don't know their you-know-what from their elbow. That's a New Hampshire expression, I think. And I'm telling you that you run into these crises, these economic problems that are almost self-inflicted. Here's J.D. Vance saying, we gotta focus on housing, people. This is what young people need.
I know that there are a lot of people out there, Sean, who are saying things are expensive. And we have to remember they're expensive because we inherited this terrible inflation crisis from the Biden administration. But you've already seen signs that things are getting better. The price of eggs has gone way down. The price of energy has gone way down. The price of gasoline has gone way down. And as we know, when the price of energy goes down, that starts to filter out into the entire economy. But that also takes a little bit of time. There's another component of this, Sean, which to me is maybe the most important because I care so much about our young people being able to afford a good life. A lot of young people are saying housing is way too expensive. Why is that? Because we flooded the country with 30 million illegal immigrants who were taking houses that ought by right go to American citizens. And at the same time, we weren't building enough new houses to begin with, even for the population that we had. So what we're doing is trying to make it easier to build houses, trying to make it easier to build factories and things like that so that people have good jobs. We're also getting all of those illegal aliens out of our country, and you're already seeing it start to pay some dividends.
Okay. So affordability, affordability, affordability. When it comes to housing, when it comes to cars, when it comes to food, when it comes to gas prices, this is the focus right now. And I should add, when it comes to healthcare, and this is important because, you don't want those healthcare costs going up. In fact, I want to just read a quick message from StopHealthCareHikes.com. Portions of the show, the Trish Regan show, are brought to you by our friends over at Americans for a Balanced Budget. And their big fear right now is if Donald Trump gets voted, or I should say the GOP gets voted out come midterms, then guess what? You're going to be up a creek without a paddle because the Democrats are just not going to stop. I mean, clearly they're going to want to impeach him again, right? Because that's what they do. And before you know it, he'll be impeached for who knows what. Who knows what? They have like an impeachment-itis over there. But anyway, they are working every day that they can to block Donald Trump's agenda. And so you can only anticipate that they're going to embrace Mamdami, which means they want to raise taxes. They want to gut the border security efforts. They want to push their every left-wing policy imaginable. If you still have Chucky Boy and Hakeem Jeffries there, they're not going to rest until they've reversed everything. That is going to be their mandate. So to stop them, I'll tell you, Republicans really need to coalesce together, right? We need to be on one page. It's part of what I was saying earlier with, MTG and Donald Trump's concerns, shall we say, about her, but she's been annexed temporarily. And it's why I should say that Americans for a Balanced Budget is really calling on Congress right now to collectively come together. You saw Jeanne Shaheen saying we need to work aggressively to, keep some of these tax cuts in there. Well, there's a massive healthcare tax hike that's set to hammer millions of hardworking Americans with higher costs. And so what's needed is Congress is going to have to extend critical healthcare tax credits that keep premiums basically affordable, right? For working families who buy their own coverage. With open enrollment underway, you run this risk that if they get a hold of it, right, many people are going to see their premiums double, right? And that's going to be a big problem. So there's still time to act. You should go over and check this out at StopHealthCareHikes.com. It's just Stop Health Costs. Stop Health Costs. I'm adding an extra word. Hikes.com. It's important because right now, I don't care what side of the aisle you're on. I mean, Jeanne Shaheen from New Hampshire saying we don't need healthcare costs going up, right? So we don't need them going up. So do whatever you can to join this movement with me here. Americans for a Balanced Budget wants to make sure that your healthcare costs are in line. Let's not let them go crazy. And yes, let's make sure that we have some affordability, maybe lower mortgage rates. Federal Reserve, are you listening? Are you paying attention? Would help with that. But again, I think the big story, and one that we're going to continue focusing on all week, is that as all of these emails come forward, what we're going to most likely find, and again, I'm willing to be surprised, but we're most likely going to find that the Democrats were in way tighter with Epstein than he was, I should say, with Donald Trump. I mean, to the point where, as we began the show and I told you about Representative Plaskett and Representative Plaskett getting texts from Epstein as she's questioning Michael Cohen, I think that sort of tips the hands in terms of what the bias was and what we saw. So that's a story that's going to continue developing here throughout the week as we get more and more information. And I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, to hit the bell with all the alerts so you know exactly when I'm live. I'm going to be back with you with much more on all of this. Thank you to all of you for helping make this channel such a success here on The Trish Regan Show. I will see you tomorrow.